One hit, and a single human ship could do what entire fleets from older empires struggled to do. Luke turned from the viewport and walked down the narrow corridor toward the living quarters. The ship hummed softly under his feet. Life on board was small and cramped, but the crew had grown used to it. Some were nervous about the unknowns of deep space, but most trusted their captain and the human spirit that carried them this far. In the common area, Lieutenant Maya Brooks was checking communication logs. She had just returned from the latest scout mission near the gas giant Alaris. The readings were strange. Something moved in the outer systems, something big and not human. "Maya," Luke said as he entered, "anything unusual?" Maya turned to him, eyes serious. "I think we have company. The Xylers are moving closer. Their fleet is heading straight for the outer colonies." Luke froze. He had heard rumors of the Xylers, a species that had always looked down on humans. They had ships larger than anything humanity could build, shields stronger than anything humans had ever fired against, and weapons that could destroy planets. Most human colonies in the sector had stayed hidden, hoping the Xylers would never notice them. But now, it seemed, hiding was no longer an option. "How many ships?" Luke asked. "Too many to fight head-on," Maya said. "If they reach the colonies, there will be nothing we can do without reinforcements." Luke ran his hand through his hair. He had hoped that humanity's colonies in the Orion sector could grow without interference, but the Xylers had other plans. They never underestimated anyone, but they also never respected humans. That was about to change. He turned back to the viewport, watching the stars. Somewhere among them the enemy moved, unaware that humans were about to show them a new kind of power. "Zoe," he called, returning to the engineering bay. "How soon can we fire the railgun?" 10 minutes, she said, checking the final calibrations. "The prototype is fully charged. I've run the simulations. It will punch through even the strongest shields we know of." Luke's face tightened with determination. "Then we make our move."
"We can't wait for the Xylars to reach the colonies. We'll strike first."
"We'll show them humanity is not to be ignored." Zoe nodded. She was excited but nervous. She understood what this meant. The railgun was more than a weapon. It was a statement. Humanity had long been considered small, weak, and slow. One strike from this weapon could change everything. The crew gathered in the control room. Luke addressed them quietly but firmly. "Listen up. The Xylers are coming. Their fleet is larger than ours, and they believe they can crush us without effort. But they do not know what we have. Humanity will not run. Humanity will not hide. Today we show the galaxy that one human ship can make a difference. One shot, one strike, can change everything. Are you with me?" The crew nodded, some smiling nervously, others grim but determined. Even the newest recruits felt a surge of pride. Luke looked at Zoe. "Ready? As ready as we'll ever be," she replied. Her fingers danced over the console, finalizing the firing sequence. The Endeavor moved silently through the dark space beyond the Xylar fleet's sensors. Luke's heart pounded. The stars outside seemed sharper, brighter, almost alive with energy. He had been in battles before, seen explosions and destruction, but this was different. This was not just survival. This was a message. Humanity was about to announce itself. The Xylar fleet loomed ahead, massive and intimidating. Their ships were sleek, metallic, and deadly.
They moved with perfect coordination, confident that no human vessel could challenge them.
Most would have fled at the sight, but not the humans on the Endeavor. Zoe's voice broke the tense silence. "Railgun charged, ready to fire on your mark." Luke nodded. He closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them again, seeing the Xylar flagship, Oblivion, shining in the distance. He pressed the firing button. The railgun discharged with a blinding light. A projectile, small but impossibly fast, streaked across space, leaving a trail that seemed to tear the darkness itself. In seconds it reached the flagship. Shields flared, trying to absorb the impact, but the projectile was unstoppable. It struck the ship, and the explosion shook the entire fleet. The Xylar ships faltered, confused. Their sensors could not understand what had happened. One strike from a human weapon had damaged their strongest vessel. Fear and disbelief rippled through the enemy ranks. The crew of the Endeavor cheered, but Luke kept his focus. This was only the beginning. The galaxy had noticed humanity. From this moment, humans would no longer be seen as weak. One shot had changed everything. As the Endeavor slipped back into the darkness, the crew watched the stars. They were silent, proud, and full of wonder. Somewhere out there, the Xylars were regrouping, and the rest of the galaxy would soon hear the news. Humans had weapons that could pierce even the strongest shields, and one strike had already shaken an empire. Luke turned to Zoe. "You did it." "Humanity did it." Zoe smiled, exhausted but thrilled. "We just showed them what humans are capable of." This is only the start. Luke looked out at the stars. He knew she was right. The galaxy had changed that day. One strike had trembled through space, and one human crew had begun a story that would be remembered for generations. Somewhere far away, in systems humans had never even seen, other civilizations began to take note. They whispered to each other in fear and curiosity. Who were these humans? What else could they do? And for the first time, humanity felt what it meant to be truly powerful, not just in numbers or technology, but in courage, creativity, and determination. The Endeavor moved forward, deeper into the unknown. The stars watched silently and the galaxy waited. The destruction of the Xylar flagship sent ripples across the galaxy. On the Endeavor, the crew celebrated quietly. Their joy was careful, cautious. They had won a small but powerful victory, and yet, Luke Harper knew this was only the beginning. The Xylars were not a species to forget or forgive. Lieutenant Maya Brooks monitored the communication channels, her eyes scanning every signal. "Captain," she said, her voice tense, "I'm picking up Xylar transmissions. They're regrouping, and they're calling for reinforcements from nearby fleets." "They know what we did." Luke's jaw tightened. "How long until they reach the colonies?"
"Too soon," Maya replied. "They're faster than we expected."
"If we don't warn the colonies and prepare defenses, people will die." Luke looked at the stars outside the viewport. He could imagine the Xylars, massive ships gleaming in the light of distant suns, coordinating their attack. They had never fought humans directly before, and now they would, and they would come in full force. "Zoe," Luke said, turning toward the engineer, "can the railgun handle multiple targets, or is it just a single strike weapon?" Zoe shook her head. "It's designed for single heavy strikes. One projectile can destroy a large ship, but we can't fire repeatedly at this speed. We'd need to reload and recharge for hours." "But we could use the element of surprise again. If we hit them where it hurts, we can slow them down." Luke nodded. "We'll need a plan. And we'll need the colonies to evacuate." Meanwhile, across the Orion sector, the Xylar commanders were furious. Admiral Vexal, leader of the Xylar fleet, paced the command deck of his new flagship. The explosion of the Oblivion had shocked him. No human ship had ever dared strike a Xylar flagship before, and certainly not with such power. "They have a weapon, a human railgun," Vexal said, his voice harsh and metallic. "One strike destroyed the flagship. One strike. We cannot let this continue," the other commanders murmured, agreeing with fear and anger. They had underestimated humans for centuries, thinking them weak, slow, and insignificant. Now they had learned their mistake. Back on the Endeavor, the crew worked tirelessly. Communications Officer Liam Davis sent warning messages to all the colonies under human control. The messages were simple and urgent. Evacuate immediately. Xylar fleets are approaching. The message repeated, clear and direct, hoping the humans on those distant worlds had time to escape. On the colony of Iridia, a mining planet with harsh deserts and towering cliffs, Commander Eli Carter received the message. He had been preparing defenses for months, but nothing like this. The colony's cannons were old, the ships were small, and the Xylar attack would be devastating if they arrived unopposed. "Prepare the evacuation ships," Eli said to his team. "We can't fight them head-on. We'll move as many civilians as we can. If humans are going to survive, we need to get them off planet." Back on the Endeavor, Luke gathered his senior officers. The Xylars will hit the colonies soon. We need a strategy. We can't fight their entire fleet directly, but we can delay them. We can make them pay for every inch they take. And we will use the railgun when it matters most. Zoe stepped forward. I can modify the targeting system for rapid precision. We won't destroy entire fleets, but we can hit key ships, the ones leading their formations, the command vessels. It might slow them down, give the colonies time to evacuate. Luke nodded. Do it. Every second counts. The Endeavor moved silently through space, hiding in asteroid fields and behind gas giants, waiting for the Xylar fleet to come closer. Each passing moment brought tension. The stars seemed to blur as they jumped between systems, always staying just out of reach of enemy sensors. On the Xylar side, Admiral Vexel ordered the fleet to spread out, trying to flush the humans out. "We will crush them," he said. "Every human ship will burn before we take their colonies." But the humans were clever. Luke Harper had spent years in deep space, learning to read the movement of stars, the subtle changes in sensor readings, and the habits of other species. He knew how to make the Xylars fight on human terms, not theirs. When the Xylar fleet entered the system near Iridia, the humans struck. From hidden positions, small ships emerged from behind asteroids, using speed and stealth to avoid detection. They fired warning shots, minor attacks that caused confusion and forced the Xylars to scatter. Zoe's railgun was ready. Luke watched through the targeting system as the Xylar command ship came into range. The massive vessel gleamed under the light of Iridia's sun. Its shields were strong, but Zoe had calculated every variable. This one shot could turn the battle. "Ready, Captain?" Zoe said. Luke's hand hovered over the firing control. He breathed deeply. "Do it," the railgun fired. A streak of light shot across space, faster than anything the Xylars had ever seen. It struck the command ship directly. Shields flared, then collapsed. The ship exploded in a brilliant ball of fire, sending shock waves through the Xylar fleet. Smaller ships veered off course, and chaos spread like wildfire. The humans used this moment of confusion to evacuate the colonies. Ships loaded with civilian supplies and essential equipment moved into orbit, leaving the Xylars behind. The railgun could not fire again immediately, but the humans had bought the time they needed. Lieutenant Maya Brooks coordinated the evacuation from the Endeavor. "All colonies accounted for?" she asked. Liam Davis checked the lists. "All safe for now. Everyone is moving." Luke allowed himself a moment of relief, but he knew this was temporary. The Xylars would not forget. They would come back stronger, faster, and more determined. Humanity had struck first, but the galaxy was vast, and dangers were endless. On the Xylar side, Admiral Vexel roared in anger. "They dare strike us again!" he shouted. "We will hunt every human ship, every colony. No one will survive their arrogance." Even though the Xylars were furious, their commanders were shaken. The humans had a weapon they could not easily counter, and one strike had shown the galaxy that humans were not weak. Fear began to creep into their ranks. Back on the Endeavor, the crew took stock. They had delayed the Xylars, evacuated the colonies, and demonstrated humanity's power. But the cost was heavy. Tension ran through the crew like electricity. They had seen what the Xylars could do, and they knew this was only the beginning. Zoe approached Luke. "Captain, we need to think ahead. They will develop countermeasures. Our advantage won't last forever." Luke nodded. "I know, but for now we've given humanity hope. We've shown the galaxy that we can fight back. That counts for something." The stars outside seemed brighter now. The human colonies were safe, at least for the moment. The Endeavor moved silently through space, watching the Xylar fleet regroup in the distance. Luke knew the next battle would be bigger, deadlier, and more dangerous. But humanity had learned something important. Courage, intelligence, and determination could match even the strongest technology. As the crew of the Endeavor prepared for the coming storms, they understood the weight of their mission. They were the first line of defense for human colonies, the bearers of a new hope in the galaxy. And They would not fail. In distant systems, other species began to whisper about humans. One strike, one weapon, and an empire had trembled. The galaxy was watching, and humanity was no longer invisible. Luke Harper stood on the bridge, looking at the stars, feeling the hum of the ship beneath him. "We've changed things today," he said quietly, "and tomorrow we'll change them even more." The Endeavor moved forward into the darkness, carrying humans' hope and the promise of a future that the galaxy had never seen before. The shock of the first railgun strike did not fade. It spread. Across the Orion sector, signals jumped from system to system. Alien fleets paused. Traders stopped. Military leaders leaned closer to their screens. One human ship had damaged a Xylar flagship with a single shot. That fact alone was enough to change how the galaxy listened. On the bridge of the Endeavor, the crew felt the weight of what they had done. The ship moved quietly through open space, engines running low and steady. No one cheered now, no one laughed. They knew the Xylars would respond, and they would respond with anger. Captain Luke Harper stood near the main screen. His face was calm, but his thoughts were heavy. He had ordered the strike, and he would carry the result of that choice for the rest of his life. Maya Brooks broke the silence. "Captain, I am detecting multiple fleet movements." "The Xylars are not retreating. They are calling in more ships." Luke nodded. "Of course they are. They are coming from 3 directions," Maya continued. "They are heading toward our outer colonies."
Luke turned to the crew. "Send a warning to every colony in the sector. Tell them to evacuate."
No delays, no arguments. Liam Davis moved quickly at his station. Message sent. All channels. Far away, on the colony world of Iridia, the warning arrived.
L.I. Carter read the message twice.
His jaw tightened. "They're coming," he said to the officers around him. "We don't have time to argue. Begin full evacuation." Iridia was not a beautiful world, but it was home to thousands of humans. Mining towers stood tall in the deserts. Cargo ships lined the ports. People stopped what they were doing when the alarm sounded. Families gathered. Workers dropped tools. Children were carried onto transports. Fear moved fast, but so did discipline. Humans had learned long ago that survival depended on action, not panic. Back aboard the Endeavor, Zoe Miller worked without pause. Her hands moved across the console, adjusting numbers, changing angles, improving targeting speed. "The railgun needs hours to recharge after each shot," she said. "We cannot use it often." Luke looked at her. "Then we use it smartly." Zoe nodded. "If we target command ships or navigation cores, we can slow the Xylar advance without fighting their full fleet." Luke turned to the main screen. "That's what we'll do." The Endeavor slipped into the shadow of a gas giant. The massive planet blocked enemy sensors, hiding the human ship from view. From there, they watched the Xylar fleet approach Iridia's system. The Xylar ships were huge. Long, sharp shapes of dark metal moved in perfect order. Their confidence was clear. They did not expect serious resistance. On the Xylar command ship, Admiral Vexo watched the human system with burning anger. The loss of the flagship had damaged his pride more than his fleet.
"Humans are insects," he said.
"They struck once by chance. They will not do it again." Yet his hands trembled slightly as he gave orders. "Advance," Vexal commanded. "Destroy their colonies. Leave nothing behind." The Xylar fleet moved forward. That was when the humans struck again. The Endeavor powered up the railgun for a second firing. Energy flowed through the ship. Lights dimmed. The air seemed to vibrate. Zoe spoke calmly. "Target locked. Command ship identified." Luke took a slow breath. Fire. The railgun released its shot. The projectile crossed space in silence. No warning. No sound. No light until impact. The Xylar command ship tried to raise shields, but it was too late. The railgun round tore through the shield layer, punched into the ship's core, and exploded. The command ship split apart, burning in space. Confusion spread instantly through the Xylar fleet. Ships drifted out of formation. Orders stopped. The signals overlapped. The human ships did not stay to fight. They moved fast, striking small targets, then vanishing again. Their goal was not victory. It was time. On Iridia, evacuation ships lifted off one by one. Smoke and dust filled the air as engines burned hot. Eli Carter watched the last transport rise. "Move," he said quietly. "Go." When the final ship cleared orbit, Iridia was empty. The Xylars arrived minutes later. They found nothing. Empty cities. Silent towers. No humans to destroy. The rage of the Xylars shook their fleet. They fired on the planet anyway, burning empty ground, but it meant nothing. The humans were gone. Back on the Endeavor, the crew watched from afar. "All colonies evacuated," Liam said. "No civilian losses reported." A quiet breath passed through the bridge. Luke closed his eyes for a moment. Good. But peace did not come. Across the galaxy, news spread. Other species listened carefully. Humans were not powerful in numbers. Their ships were not the biggest, but their weapon was different. Their thinking was different. They did not fight like others. They struck fast. They hit leaders. They used space itself as a weapon. Some species felt fear. Others felt interest. On a distant neutral world, alien leaders met in silence. A single message played on repeat. One human railgun strike. The words alone carried weight. Back with the Xylars, Admiral Vexel stood among the wreckage of his fleet's pride. His eyes burned with hatred. "They will pay," he said. "Study the weapon. Find its weakness, no matter the cost." The war was no longer about colonies. It was about pride. On the Endeavor, Zoe sat back from her station. She looked tired, but her eyes were sharp.
They will adapt, she said to Luke. They always do.
Luke nodded. "So will we." The ship turned away from Iridia and jumped into deep space. The stars stretched and blurred as they moved. Humanity had survived the first wave, but the galaxy was waking up, and it would never look at humans the same way again. Time passed, but the memory of that single strike stayed alive in every council hall, every fleet command, and every trading route. Humans were no longer ignored. They were discussed in quiet voices and watched with careful eyes. The Endeavor moved through deep space, far from the old colonies. Luke Harper stood on the bridge, older now, lines deeper on his face. The war had not fully arrived, but it was close. Everyone felt it. Human fleets were forming for the first time in history. Not large fleets, not proud fleets, but smart ones. Fast ships, hidden bases, long-range weapons. Humans did not try to match the galaxy in size. They chose precision. Zoe Miller had not slept much in weeks. She worked on new railgun designs, smaller ones, faster ones. Not every ship could carry the original weapon, but many could carry lighter versions. "They won't all be killers," she told Luke one night. "But they don't need to be. They just need to remind the galaxy that humans can strike anywhere." Luke nodded. Fear spreads faster than fleets. Maya Brooks handled diplomacy now more than combat. Neutral species contacted humans, careful but curious. They asked questions. They tested words. Are humans peaceful? Are humans dangerous? Are humans worth trusting? Maya answered with honesty. Humans defend their own. We do not seek control. We seek survival. Some species believed her. Others did not. The Xylars watched everything. Admiral Vexel had not been removed. He had been given more power. The Xylar leaders believed only strength could answer humiliation. They rebuilt their fleet and hardened their shields. They changed formation tactics. They trained crews to expect sudden strikes. They believed they were ready. They were wrong. The final clash did not begin with a battle. It began with silence. A Xylar forward fleet entered a quiet system near human space. No signals, no ships, no warnings. Then the railguns fired. Not one, 5. from different angles, different distances, different vectors. 3 Xylar ships vanished in seconds. A 4th spun out of control. The 5th escaped, broken and screaming warnings across space. Humans did not chase. They never chased. That message reached Admiral Vexel within hours. "They are everywhere," one officer said. Vexel stared at the display. His anger had cooled into something else. Understanding. "They are not fighting a war," he said slowly. "They are teaching a lesson." For the first time, the Xylars slowed. Other species noticed too. Trade routes shifted away from Xylar control. Neutral worlds refused docking rights. Old allies began to hesitate. Fear had a cost. Weeks later, a message arrived for humanity. It was not a threat. It was a request. A Xylar envoy asked to meet on neutral ground. Luke Harper read the message in silence. Zoe looked at him. "Do you trust them?" "No," Luke said. "But I trust what they've learned." The meeting took place on a quiet station between systems. No weapons, no fleets nearby. Luke entered with Maya at his side. Across the table stood the Xylar envoy, tall and still. "You have changed the balance," the envoy said. "Not with numbers, with intent." Luke met his gaze. "We did what we had to." The envoy paused. "The Xylars do not like equals. But we understand cost. Continued conflict will weaken us and strengthen others." Maya spoke calmly. "Then stop attacking human space." The envoy nodded once, in exchange for borders. Clear ones. Luke considered. This was not victory. But it was survival. "We agree," he said. "As long as humans are left alone." The envoy accepted. When the meeting ended, no cheers followed. No celebration spread across human space. But something better did. Relief. Years passed. Human colonies returned, stronger and better protected. Railguns became symbols, not just weapons. Children learned about the first strike in school. Not as glory. As warning. Do not underestimate those who adapt. Luke Harper retired quietly. He stood one last time on the bridge of the Endeavor, running his hand along the console. "We were never the strongest," he said to Zoe. "We just refused to be small." Zoe smiled. That was enough. Maya continued her work, building alliances slowly, carefully. Humans became known as stubborn, clever, and dangerous when cornered. The galaxy adjusted. No empire ruled everything anymore. And whenever fleets gathered too close to human space, sensors always watched the dark. Because somewhere, hidden and silent, a railgun waited. And the galaxy remembered what one strike could do. "They have railguns?" The galaxy trembled from one strike. The stars stretched endlessly around the small human vessel Endeavor. Captain Luke Harper leaned against the control panel, watching the dim light of distant suns flicker past the viewport. It was quiet now, almost peaceful, but Luke knew better. Space was never truly quiet. Somewhere out there, dangers were waiting, lurking in the dark. Luke rubbed his hands together. He was not a young man, but his eyes still had the fire of someone who had seen the galaxy expand. His crew worked around him, focused and disciplined, each one trusting the other to do their part. They had a simple mission: explore the far edges of the Orion sector, chart unknown systems, and ensure that humanity had a place in the vast stretches of space. It was a mission of hope, but also a mission of risk. Engineer Zoe Miller was hunched over a console, her brow furrowed in concentration. Sparks of light danced across the instruments as she ran simulations for a new weapon system. She didn't usually get nervous, but this railgun prototype was unlike anything humanity had built before. Luke watched her for a moment. She was the best engineer they had, and he trusted her completely.
"Everything looks stable," Zoe said without looking up. "The railgun is ready for testing."
"We just need a safe target," Luke nodded. "We'll need more than a safe target. If this works, it could change everything for us." The railgun was their secret. Humanity had always been smaller than most of the galactic powers. slower, weaker in some ways. Ships from older civilizations could outgun humans in every measure of raw firepower. But the railgun was different. It used electromagnetic energy to launch a solid projectile at near light speed. One hit, and it could tear through shields that took dozens of conventional energy blasts to crack.